Hello my crochet cherubs. I hope you're doing well. Today we're unboxing some yarn that my husband bought for me. I apologize for my voice. I'm recovering from a pretty bad cold. This is a really big box for just one skein of yarn. But look, it's the all-in-one Red Heart Super Saver heart motif. I think they came out with this for Valentine's Day, but I love the colors and it comes with the QR code for some patterns. This is a 4-weight yarn and it calls for a 5.5 hook. It starts with the brown and goes to gray and then green, or that's how it's supposed to come out. And here I'm just gonna pull up my tulip hook, my 5.5, and open this up. So the written pattern and the graph come on the back of the wrapper. And I'm just gonna get started. I'm trying to pull out some of the yarn to see when the color changes, but at the beginning, just like for the first square, it was a lot. And this starts with a chain. I think it's a chain 4, and then you join it, and then you work into that little circle you just made. I know a lot of us like to start with a magic ring, but I want to follow the pattern as best as I can. And I also don't think that everybody has to start their project with a magic ring. I know, how dare I, but I think it's more of a personal preference for people. Like if somebody wants to start with the chain and then join, I think if that works for them, that's fine. If you've seen some of the other videos I've made, you know that that's what I feel. And this actually starts the same way any granny square would start. I'm not gonna lie, I'm having trouble reading this pattern. The written pattern says things like double crochet and triple crochet, or triple crochet and double crochet, or 8 triple crochet in last double crochet, but it's kind of like a long paragraph with commas, and I don't know if I'm just not reading it correctly. For the first time ever, the graph made more sense to me than the written pattern. I'm noticing here something just feels wrong, and I keep looking back at the pattern and then doing this. And it just looks weird to me, so I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong.
A few moments later.
And so I decided to start over again. I had to start over again. I mean, this took me maybe 36 times. And I did finish a square at first, but I kept on looking at it and I said something's wrong. It felt wrong, it looked wrong, it looked like a square, but it was slanted a bit, so I think I put a triple crochet where there should have been a double crochet. There was multiple attempts, and I'm a very stubborn person, so I was going to get there no matter how many times it took. I did have to stop and put it away for a day because I was getting way too frustrated There was so many things going wrong. I couldn't read the pattern because that might be, user error. I went to the Your Inspiration website to get a few more tips. But what ended up helping me the most is I watched a video of somebody explaining. I think they said they were affiliated with Your Inspiration, so they were able to make the tutorial. And I'll link it in the description. But it really helped me a lot. It was more watching the video with them telling me what to do, because for some reason the whole half double crochet in triple crochet mixed me up for some reason, and I I would have preferred if it told me to skip 3 and then crochet into the next one, because I was getting all mixed up. And this is a preference because everyone learns differently, and I don't believe in policing how people crochet or how they do their craft, because what works for you, and what works for them works for them. Um the only other issues I was having is were the other issues I was having were that sometimes the color wasn't changing when I wanted it to, and there was some color bleeding that I noticed, so I'm not sure if it was that or if it's really too short for the 5.5 hook. With these types of yarns, tension is the biggest thing to worry about. And I was trying so hard to get this right, but I had to switch hooks. I had to switch hooks a few times for it to work. I tried using a 3.5. That might have been too small. I tried using the 5.5, which is what the pattern calls for. I had to start over again. But like I was saying, the pattern calls for a 5.5, but I was running into the problem that for the brown part of the square, I was running out of yarn. So I had to switch up crochet hooks. I tried using the 5.5, that didn't work, and I tried tightening my tension, that didn't work. I tried using a 3.5, but I think that way it was way too small. And because I was frustrated, I kept on starting over and messing up. That's why I had to take a day and go back to it the next day. Also, I had to make sure I wasn't taking too much. That sometimes I'd have to loosen up my tension, sometimes I'd have to make my tension tighter. I didn't have this problem with the other granny squares. The first red heart granny square, I was able to make that no problem. I know that that one frustrated a ton of people, but I think I am having that frustration with this sweethearts one. What I ended up having to do to get this to look right is follow the instructions on that video. And I started with the 5.5 for most of the rounds, but when it got to the little lumps of the heart, the two little bumps, I had to go to a 4 millimeter hook for those triple crochets. Fortunately, that worked out in my favor, and I was able to get it done. Overall, I think this is a pretty good way to figure out how to make a heart in the middle of a granny square. Not figure out, it's a pretty good pattern, is what I meant. I struggled a lot, but if you're able to kind of fix your tension or maybe play around with the crochet hooks, it's worth it. It changes colors by itself. There's not as much weaving that you have to do. And it does work. You're probably able to make a, a blanket, or they have some patterns with the QR code. I'm not gonna knock it and say, oh, this was a horrible experience, never buy this yarn. No. I think I'd give it a 3.5, but that is coming from a little bit of anger since this took me forever to make one tiny, tiny square. Okay, it's not tiny, but it's one square compared to. I wonder how many squares I can make with this yarn. Maybe I'll update you on that. But I do think maybe like a 3 or 3.5 out of 5. Mostly because I struggled with it. But if you're, like I said, if you're able to fix your tension, it's definitely worth buying. If you don't like the colors, then there's different colors. I don't remember which ones they are. I might put them on the screen here. But you can always use the same pattern with your own yarn and your own colors. So whatever you want to mix together, the pattern will work for all of the different yarns you want to use. I am so happy because I was finally able to make the heart that how this pattern intends it to be. And my experience, my frustration level was probably a 3 out of 5. But the yarn itself, I would say that is a 4 out of 5 because it does work. You just have to kind of play around with it. You do just have to adjust your tension so that it works out for all the colors to kind of just change on their own. And the color way that I use, the color of this yarn is called Heart of Stone, which I think is very clever because there's the different shades of gray. And it does say, now that I'm rereading the label, it does say that you can make 16 squares with the one ball of yarn. It also says that each square is supposed to be 6 by 6 inches, which is exactly what it is when it's all stretched out. It's also, or 15 by 15 centimeters when it's all stretched out. It's exactly like that. That's exactly what my square measures. I think I'm going to block them so that it doesn't, so that it's just a little straighter because I feel like it needs it in my opinion. I do like that with this type of yarn, you don't have to, hide as much of your tails, or you don't have to weave them in. It's just the beginning and the end that you have to weave in. I think I'm gonna check out some of the patterns because I do have only the one skein of yarn. And it might just be a blanket, but I'd like to see if there's anything you can make with just the one skein. I'm also thinking about trying some of the other all-in-one yarns. I know I tried the first one they came out with, which was the granny square motif one. The traditional granny square. I did like that one. I used the same I used the same hook size that they recommended, and I struggled a little less with that one. And I think now I'm on the other end where I'm struggling with this one and people are having more fun with it. But I think I do have the all-in-one flower power. I might try that one, and some of the other ones I was reading there is around. I think the I want to try the quilt one, which is the corner to corner one. And I think they have like a big one, like a giant 12-inch granny square. Let me know if you'd want me to try that.
One eternity later.